Welcome back. Sometimes I'll go through long periods where I won't listen to near-death experience stories. I think I've told you guys on various occasions that I've sort of made a study of that, having read many books on it and listened to lots of stories. But then, life comes along and I kind of forget or get distracted. But I'd been through a period of stress of late and hadn't done it. But yesterday I kind of found a near death story, and I'll tell you a quick story about it. So, anyway, it's this guy, TV producer, production producer, quite successful in his business, and everything is going his way in his life. And he gets a great new business deal, and he's on a plane trip to go sign all the contracts, and he has a massive heart attack while he's on the plane trip, and they have to divert in some little podunk city and drop him off. But long story short, he had a visitation with the infinite during his while his heart was stopped, as is the case with so many when this happens. And the story that he tells, it's the commonality underneath these stories if you listen carefully. But he talked about, not he didn't use the word God. He talked about a force or a power or an influence or a presence or an origin or a being, whatever it was. The experience was so many quadrillions of times powerful than he ever could have imagined. But the one thing that he brought back from the experience, because we hear that God loves us, we hear that we are precious to him and that we're all valued. But his experience was that to say that just doesn't even begin to come close of the experience that he had. The best words that he could use were that so to speak, God is madly in love with him, madly in love, wildly over the top, crazily in love, and with all of us. And so I was kind of listening to that, going, that's pretty cool. That's nice. And I've got these in my head. I've got a committee, and a couple of my committee members are practiced skeptics, devil's advocates. And so the first question that popped up in my head was, well, if that's true, how how come how come I forgot that? How did I get to a position where I I have forgotten that, or I don't know that? And well, that's a good question. I think any sentient, intelligent person should ask that question. If there's a God that's wildly, madly in love with us, how do we not know that? Hmm. Well, I'm not gonna work on that question right now. That's a question for next week maybe. But the next question that came to my mind, if having realized that, if I do truly accept conceptually, intellectually, theoretically, that God, love, source, infinite, higher organizing power is madly in love with me, then how come the realization of that just doesn't bring it back immediately? In other words, existentially, why are we left out to dry? I think perhaps you could relate to that. Why are so many of us seemingly left out to dry in an existence that is absent of that feeling of God, love, source being madly in love with us? And I think that's another very valid question. But the answer that I was thinking of is it takes time. Being physical, organic creatures, if the sudden intellectual realization of something was instantly integrated into our nervous system, in other words, just the thought of it made it happen, we would live a pretty wild existence on this earth. In other words, a major a major conscious understanding shift would lead to an immediate experiential shift inside of us. So The answer that occurs to me, and you should probably think about this for yourself and see what you think. If there is a God that's wildly in love with me, how come I don't feel it? And how come my willingness to believe that doesn't immediately allow that to unfold in my life like a tsunami of ecstasy all at once? And if that question makes sense, we might think that we're getting the slow, patient variety of it. And ultimately, as I discussed at the start of the meditation, when we're going through a difficulty, we might recontextualize or reframe every single difficulty that we're going through and think, how is this God's love trying to wake me up? How is this problem, this resentment, this bitterness, this thing, this tragedy, how can this be best used in order to wake me up to the fact that this is God's love coming to me and I'm simply not able to receive it yet? So I'm just here to remind you and to remind me that there's a God love source, infinite higher organizing power that is madly, wildly, crazily in love with us. Like you've had that kind of love for your pet, your baby. How about the first time your baby was set into your arms? That over the top kind of love. And to even begin to consider that that's the kind of love our God has for us, our source, whatever name you like to give, I think is an important turning point, and then that will gain momentum inside of us. Anyway, that's a thought for today. I'm being bitten. Everybody have a beautiful day.